The roar of Merlin engines fills the night sky over northern France. Inside a modified Lancaster bomber, the crew holds their breath as the aircraft shudders violently. Below them, buried beneath 5 meters of reinforced concrete, German engineers work feverishly on weapons that could turn the tide of the war. The bombardier's hands tremble over the release mechanism. One bomb, 12,000 pounds of steel and explosive, spinning like a massive drill through the darkness. In seconds, it will do what thousands of conventional bombs could never accomplish. The Earth itself is about to become a weapon. If you are fascinated by the hidden secrets of World War II engineering, subscribe to this channel right now and leave a comment telling us where you are watching from. You will not want to miss a single moment of this incredible story. The year is 1942. The German war machine has transformed the coastline of occupied Europe into the most formidable defensive network in human history. From Norway to the Spanish border, thousands of concrete fortifications stare out at the English Channel. The Atlantic Wall is rising, and at its heart lies an engineering achievement that seems utterly invincible. Submarine pens, V-weapon bunkers, coastal batteries, all protected by concrete roofs exceeding 5 meters in thickness. 4 million cubic meters of concrete shield, Germany's most vital military assets. The problem facing Allied commanders is almost incomprehensible in scale. Between October 1942 and October 1943, the United States Army Air Forces launched more than 2,000 heavy bomber sorties against German submarine pens along the French coast alone. The results are devastating, but not for the Germans. Nearly 1,200 American aircrew members are neutralized or captured. The submarine pens remain virtually untouched. Bombs simply bounce off the massive concrete structures or detonate harmlessly on the surface, creating little more than superficial scarring. Inside those submarine pens, German U-boats continue their deadly work. The Battle of the Atlantic hangs in the balance. Allied convoys lose millions of tons of supplies. Thousands of merchant sailors disappear beneath the cold waves of the North Atlantic. The submarine bases at Lorient, Brest, Saint-Nazaire, and Le Palais operate with near impunity. German engineers have calculated correctly that no existing bomb can penetrate their defenses. The concrete is simply too thick. The fortifications are simply too strong. But in a modest office in Weybridge, England, a middle-aged aeronautical engineer is about to change everything. Barnes Wallis is not a young man. At 55 years old, he has already designed the R-100 airship and created the geodesic construction method that makes the Wellington bomber possible. His colleagues consider him brilliant but eccentric. What they do not know is that Wallis is about to revolutionize warfare itself. Wallis approaches the problem from first principles. If bombs cannot destroy bunkers by exploding on their surface, perhaps they do not need to hit the bunkers at all. He studies earthquake mechanics, geological surveys, and structural engineering reports. Slowly, a radical concept takes shape in his mind. The ground itself can become a weapon. Shock waves travel faster and more powerfully through solid earth than through air. A bomb detonating deep underground, near but not inside a target, could transmit devastating energy directly into the foundations of any structure. In 1941, Wallis presents his ideas in a paper titled A Note on a Method of Attacking the Axis Powers. His proposal is audacious. He envisions a 10-ton bomb dropped from extreme altitude that would penetrate deep into the earth before exploding. The resulting earthquake effect would undermine foundations, shift structures off their moorings, and create underground caverns into which targets would simply collapse. No amount of surface armor could protect against an attack from below. The Air Ministry responds with skepticism bordering on hostility. A single bomb weighing 10 tons would require an entirely new aircraft to carry it. The resources needed for such a project seem impossible to justify when every factory is already working at maximum capacity. Wallace's proposal is shelved, but the engineer does not give up. He scales down his vision, designing a bomb that existing aircraft could carry with modifications. The result is the Tallboy, a weapon weighing 12,000 pounds, or approximately 5.5 metric tons. The Tallboy's design is revolutionary in every aspect. Unlike conventional bombs, which have thin casings designed to maximize explosive content, the Tallboy has an incredibly strong casing of high-tensile steel. Each bomb is cast in one piece, a manufacturing challenge that requires precision engineering and handcrafted attention to detail. The nose contains a specially hardened steel plug, machined to exact tolerances. This allows the bomb to survive impacts that would shatter any conventional weapon. But strength alone is not enough. Wallace needs the bomb to achieve unprecedented velocity. He designs an aerodynamically clean shape, with a tail section that comprises nearly half the weapon's overall length of 21 feet. The fins are given a slight twist, causing the bomb to spin as it falls. This gyroscopic effect stabilizes the weapon, preventing the tumbling that would destroy accuracy and reduce impact energy. When dropped from its optimal altitude of 18,000 feet, the Tallboy reaches a terminal velocity of 750 miles per hour, far faster than any previous bomb. The filling is equally innovative. Instead of standard TNT, the Tallboy contains 2.6 tons of Torpex, an explosive 50% more powerful than conventional alternatives. Aluminum powder in the Torpex compound extends the expansion time of the explosion, creating a longer pulse that transfers more effectively through solid ground. The combination of high-density casing, extreme velocity, and powerful explosive creates something entirely new in warfare. A weapon designed not to destroy what it hits, but to shake apart everything nearby. Manufacturing the Tallboy is extraordinarily labor-intensive. The materials are costly. The engineering tolerances are precise beyond anything attempted before in bomb production. Each weapon is essentially handmade, with workers carefully pouring molten Torpex into the upturned casing after melting it in special kettles. The final stages require layers of pure TNT, wood meal wax composite sealing, and 3 separate chemical time fuses. This redundancy ensures detonation even if 2 of the 3 mechanisms fail. The result is a weapon so valuable that crews are ordered never to jettison it if a mission is aborted. Unlike conventional bombs, which can be dropped safely into the sea if an aircraft encounters problems, Tallboys must be brought home. The value of each weapon offsets the additional risk to the aircrew. This single fact illustrates the revolutionary nature of what Wallace has created. For the first time in aviation history, a bomb is considered more valuable than the men who carry it. The first Tallboy mission takes place on the night of June 8, 1944, just 2 days after D-Day. The target is a railway tunnel near Saumur in France. Intelligence reports indicate that a German panzer unit is preparing to move through this tunnel to reinforce the Normandy front. If those tanks reach the beaches, the entire Allied invasion could be in jeopardy. 19 Lancaster bombers of No. 617 Squadron carry the new weapons into combat. What happens next stuns even the most optimistic planners. One Tallboy bores straight through the hillside above the tunnel and explodes 60 feet below the surface, directly inside the railway passage. The tunnel collapses completely. The German reinforcements never arrive. A single bomb has accomplished what conventional attacks could never achieve. The weapon that many had dismissed as a fantasy has proven itself in the most dramatic fashion imaginable. But the true potential of the Tallboy becomes clear in the weeks that follow. On June 19th, No. 617 Squadron attacks a V-2 rocket facility at Watten. The nearest Tallboy lands 50 yards from the target. It does not need to hit the bunker directly. The earthquake effect undermines the foundations, and the entire facility is rendered useless. 5 days later, at Wizards, several tallboy hits around a V-2 assembly dome shift the massive structure off its alignment. The bunker is abandoned without a single bomb penetrating its armor. This is the secret that makes the tallboy so devastating. The earthquake principle means that a near miss is almost as effective as a direct hit. Shock waves reflecting off underground rock formations create complex stress patterns that shatter concrete from within. Even bunkers with roofs exceeding 5 meters in thickness cannot protect their occupants from attacks that come from below. The Germans have built their fortresses to resist assault from above. They have no defense against the earth itself rising up to destroy them. The attacks continue throughout the summer of 1944. At Siricourt, 3 direct tallboy hits destroy a V-1 bunker. At Saint-Leu-des-Serins, 17 Lancasters attempt to collapse limestone caves used as V-weapon storage depots. At Mimoyeco, a tallboy penetrates one of the shafts protecting the secret V-3 cannon, blocking galleries with earth and debris. Each mission demonstrates new capabilities. Each success builds confidence in Wallace's revolutionary concept. Now, if you're enjoying this deep dive into military engineering history, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The story is about to become even more extraordinary. The submarine pens that had resisted thousands of conventional bombs finally meet their match. On August 5, 1944, 15 Lancasters attack the U-boat pens at Brest. 6 tallboys strike directly, penetrating the concrete roofs that had seemed invulnerable. The psychological impact on German forces is immense. Subsequent attempts to reinforce other submarine bases with even thicker concrete divert enormous resources from other projects. The Allies have found the weapon that can crack Germany's hardest shells. But perhaps the most dramatic demonstration of tallboy's power comes against a target far from any bunker. The German battleship Tirpitz, sister ship to the legendary Bismarck, lies anchored in a Norwegian fjord. This massive warship threatens every convoy sailing to the Soviet Union. Previous attempts to destroy her have failed repeatedly. Her armor seems impervious to conventional attack. On September 15, 1944, No. 617 Squadron launches Operation Paravane. The conditions are challenging. The target is protected by mountains, smoke screens, and intense anti-aircraft fire, but one tallboy finds its mark, passing through the forward deck and hull before exploding in the water on the starboard side. The blast wrecks the bow and floods forward compartments with 2,000 tons of water. Several other tallboys exploding in the water nearby buckle hull plates and bulkheads throughout the ship. Tirpitz is rendered unseaworthy. 9 months of repair work would be required, and Germany simply does not have that time. A second attack in October scores a near miss that bends a propeller shaft. Then, on November 12th, Operation Catechism delivers the killing blow. 3 tallboys hit the Tirpitz directly. Others fall close by, cratering the seabed and removing the sandbank constructed to prevent capsizing. One bomb penetrates between turrets but fails to explode. A second strikes amidships, destroying the entire section of belt armor and blowing an enormous hole in the ship's side and bottom. A third hits near turret Caesar, eventually triggering a magazine explosion. The mightiest battleship in the German fleet rolls over and sinks, taking more than 1,000 crew members with her. The success of the Tallboy leads Wallace to complete his original vision. If a 12,000-pound bomb can achieve such results, what might a 22,000-pound weapon accomplish? The result is the Grand Slam, the largest conventional bomb ever used in combat. At 10 metric tons, it requires even more extensive modifications to the Lancaster bombers that carry it. Armor plating and defensive armament must be stripped away entirely. The bomb bay doors must be removed. Even then, the massive weapon hangs partially exposed beneath the aircraft. The Grand Slam enters service in March 1945. Its first target is the Bielefeld Viaduct, a crucial railway bridge that has resisted conventional bombing. On March 14th, No. 617 Squadron attacks with both Grand Slams and Tallboys. The earthquake effect proves devastating. 100 meters of the viaduct simply collapse as shock waves shatter its foundations. No direct hit is required. The bombs exploding nearby are enough to bring down the entire structure. Throughout the final months of the war, Grand Slams and Tallboys systematically destroy targets that had seemed invulnerable. Railway viaducts collapse, U-boat pens are breached. The pocket battleship Admiral Scheer is hit by 5 Tallboys and capsizes in Kiel Harbor. The heavy cruiser Lützow takes a near miss that tears a massive hole in her bottom. Even Hitler's vacation retreat at Berchtesgaden receives attention, with 6 Tallboys falling on the Berghof in the final days of the conflict. The effectiveness of these weapons stems from understanding that not all military problems can be solved by simply using more explosives. Conventional bombing doctrine called for saturating targets with hundreds or thousands of relatively small bombs, hoping that sheer volume would overwhelm defenses. Wallace recognized that certain targets required a different approach entirely. His earthquake bombs concentrated enormous energy into precise points, allowing single weapons to accomplish what thousands of conventional bombs could not. But the Tallboy and Grand Slam are not the only revolutionary bunker-busting weapons developed during the war. While Barnes-Wallis refines his earthquake bombs, a different approach takes shape across the English Channel. The Disney bomb, named after the Walt Disney propaganda film that inspired its creators, represents a parallel path to the same destination. Where Wallace uses mass and penetration to create earthquakes, the Disney uses rocket propulsion to achieve unprecedented impact velocities. The idea originates with Captain Edward Tyrrell of the Royal Naval Volunteer Reserve. Before the war, Tyrrell worked as a lawyer and served as the recorder of Newbury. He was also an enthusiastic inventor who had filed patents for everything from vegetable peeling knives to fountain pen ink bottles. This unusual background gives him a fresh perspective on military problems. When Tyrrell and fellow naval officers watched the 1943 Disney animated film Victory Through Air Power, something clicks. The film depicts a similar concept, a rocket-assisted penetrating bomb. Why not make it real? The physics behind the Disney bomb differ fundamentally from the earthquake approach. Instead of relying on mass and penetration depth, the Disney maximizes impact velocity. Newton's approximation for impact depth indicates that penetration increases with a projectile that is dense, long, and thin, striking at the highest possible speed. The Disney bomb embodies all these principles. Its body is only 11 inches in diameter, incredibly slim for a 4,500-pound weapon. The thick steel casing contains a relatively small explosive charge of 500 pounds, prioritizing penetration over blast effect. The key innovation is the rocket motor assembly. 19 solid-fuel rockets, adapted from the 3-inch rocket projectile, fill the midsection of the bomb. These are essentially metal tubes packed with cordite. A tail section contains the ignition circuit, powered by a small generator with a vane that spins in the airstream as the bomb falls. The entire weapon measures 16 feet 6 inches in length, requiring it to be carried externally under the wings of Boeing B-17 Flying Fortresses rather than in the bomb bay. The operational profile is precise. Disney bombs must be dropped from exactly 20,000 feet. For 30 seconds, they fall freely, accelerating under gravity alone. Then, at 5,000 feet, the barometric switch triggers rocket ignition. The tail section is expelled as the rockets fire for 3 seconds, adding 300 feet per second to the bomb's velocity. The final impact speed reaches 1,450 feet per second, approximately 990 miles per hour, or Mach 1.29. This is substantially faster than the Tallboy's 750 miles per hour terminal velocity. Post-war testing demonstrates remarkable penetration capability. Disney bombs can punch through 14 feet 8 inches of solid concrete, with predicted maximum penetration of 16 feet 8 inches. This exceeds even the thickness of the most heavily reinforced submarine pens. The weapon is designed not to cause earthquakes, but to drill directly through bunker roofs and detonate inside, destroying the contents rather than undermining the structure. Development begins in September 1943, but the path to operational use proves tortuous. The Air Ministry opposes the project on technical grounds. Multiple departments must coordinate production. Churchill's scientific advisor, Lord Cherwell, requires convincing of technical feasibility. It takes a meeting of the War Cabinet in May 1944 to finally give the Disney P+ priority. By then, the first Tallboys are already being manufactured. Despite being a British invention, the Disney bomb is used exclusively by the United States Army Air Forces. The 92nd Bombardment Group receives initial tasking, with the 305th and 306th groups later joining the effort. Each B-17 carries 2 bombs, one slung under each wing using mounts originally designed for glide bombs. Cameras fitted to the aircraft record trajectory and effect for post-mission analysis. The first combat use comes on February 10, 1945, against E-boat pens at IJmuiden in the Netherlands. 9 aircraft carrying 18 Disney bombs attack Schnellbootbunker BY. The E-boats sheltered in these pens have been a considerable threat to Allied shipping, putting to sea under cover of darkness to attack supply convoys. Previous RAF attacks using 53 Tallboys plus numerous conventional bombs have failed to destroy the facilities. The Disney bombs penetrate the concrete, but the pens are empty at the time of attack. A second attack on March 14th targets the older SBB-1 pen. Then, on March 30th, the most ambitious Disney mission yet launches against the Valentine submarine pens near Bremen. This massive complex, still under construction, is intended to be a factory for assembling Type Behind-Wind U-boats. Its 4.5-meter-thick roof represents the most heavily reinforced target yet attacked. 36 aircraft, including 12 from the 92nd Bomb Group, launch more than 60 Disney bombs. The results are mixed. Only one Disney directly hits the target with limited effect. However, the structure has already been damaged by 2 Grand Slams dropped by the RAF 3 days earlier. The Germans attempt limited repairs before abandoning the complex entirely. British forces capture the area 4 weeks later. The combination of earthquake bombs from above and rocket-assisted penetrators from outside has proven too much even for Germany's most formidable fortification. Additional missions follow. On April 4th, 24 B-17s attack Hamburg through cloud cover using radar guidance. A final mission scheduled for May is canceled as the war in Europe ends. In total, 158 Disney bombs are dropped operationally. No aircraft or aircrew are lost during these missions, a remarkable record considering the hazards of carrying externally mounted weapons over heavily defended targets. The post-war assessment of the Disney bomb reveals both strengths and significant limitations. The rocket booster ignition proves unreliable, with a failure rate approaching 37% during testing. Some bombs break apart on impact due to flaws in the steel casing. Others strike at angles that increase the effective thickness of concrete they must penetrate. The comparatively small warhead means that destroying large bunker complexes requires multiple direct hits. Unlike the earthquake bombs, near misses accomplish nothing. Project Ruby, a 1946 Anglo-American testing program, compares both weapon types against captured German bunkers at Heligoland and the Valentine pens. The conclusion is revealing. Disney bombs achieve penetration of 14 feet 8 inches. Tallboys and Grand Slams achieve approximately 14 feet directly, with additional thickness blown in by their enormous explosive charges. Neither weapon type is considered completely satisfactory. Recommendations call for development of a new generation of concrete-penetrating bombs, combining the best features of both approaches. The legacy of these weapons extends far beyond the Second World War. The principles established by Barnes-Wallis form the foundation for every bunker-buster bomb developed since. During the 1991 Gulf War, when coalition forces face hardened Iraqi command bunkers, no NATO Air Force possesses a weapon capable of penetrating them. In just 28 days, engineers developed the GBU-28 using old 8-inch artillery barrels as casings, consciously echoing Wallace's approach of repurposing high-strength steel. The modern massive ordnance penetrator, developed in the 2000s for potential use against deeply buried nuclear facilities, weighs 30,000 pounds and can penetrate 200 feet of earth or 60 feet of concrete. Its designers explicitly acknowledge the debt owed to Second World War pioneers. The spinning stabilization, the hardened steel casing, the delayed fuse, all trace directly back to Wallace's original concepts. The human cost of developing and deploying these weapons cannot be forgotten. The 1,200 American aircrew lost in futile attacks on submarine pens before the Tallboy's development represent just one measure of the price paid for bunker-busting capability. The crews who flew modified Lancasters stripped of armor and defensive armament took extraordinary risks. The concentration camp prisoners forced to build the Valentine pens suffered horrific conditions and a high death rate. War demands sacrifices from all sides, willing and unwilling alike. Consider the men inside those Lancaster bombers over Norway, hunting the Tirpitz. They fly at extreme altitude in unpressurized, unheated aircraft. Temperatures drop to minus 40 degrees. Oxygen must be carefully rationed. Anti-aircraft fire fills the sky around them. If their aircraft is damaged, they carry a bomb too valuable to jettison, meaning any emergency landing becomes almost certainly fatal. These are the human realities behind the cold statistics of bombing campaigns. The German defenders face their own terrors. Soldiers stationed in bunkers along the Atlantic Wall have been promised safety behind meters of reinforced concrete. The psychological impact of watching bombs penetrate defenses they believed impregnable cannot be measured. After Tallboy attacks, entire garrisons abandon positions that remain structurally intact simply because they no longer trust the walls around them. The earthquake bombs destroy not just concrete, but confidence. Engineers on both sides engage in a deadly race of innovation. German designers add layer after layer of concrete, create air gaps between roofing slabs, design angled surfaces intended to deflect penetrating weapons. Allied scientists counter with higher velocities, harder casings, more powerful explosives. Each advance prompts a response. Each response drives further development. The technological spiral continues even as the war ends, its momentum carrying forward into peacetime weapons programs. If you have made it this far into this documentary, you are clearly passionate about military history. Please take a moment to subscribe and share this video with fellow history enthusiasts. Your support makes content like this possible. The story of these bunker-busting weapons illuminates a broader truth about warfare in the 20th century. Raw power alone does not determine outcomes. Innovation, engineering excellence, and unconventional thinking often prove more valuable than simple numerical superiority. Barnes-Wallis, working with limited resources and facing institutional resistance, develops weapons that accomplish what entire air fleets cannot. Edward Tyrrell, a peacetime lawyer, conceives of rocket-assisted bombs that penetrate defenses designed by Germany's best military engineers. The earthquake effect that makes Tallboys so devastating represents a fundamental insight into physics and engineering. Rather than fighting against the protective properties of concrete, Wallis harnesses them, shock waves that dissipate rapidly through air travel efficiently through solid materials. A bunker's own mass becomes the medium through which destructive energy is transmitted. The stronger the structure, the more completely the earthquake effect permeates it. What appears to be a strength becomes a vulnerability when approached from the right angle. This principle has applications beyond military engineering. Earthquake-resistant building design today considers how shock waves propagate through foundations and structural elements. Understanding gained from analyzing bunker-busting weapons contributes to protecting civilian structures from natural disasters. The knowledge flows in both directions, with geological research informing weapons development and weapons testing advancing geological science. The political dimensions of these weapons also deserve attention. Churchill personally champions the Disney bomb project against Air Ministry opposition. The decision to prioritize Tallboy production diverts resources from other programs. Strategic choices about which targets receive which weapons reflect complex calculations balancing military necessity, political pressure, and available intelligence. These are not purely technical decisions, but human ones, made by individuals with incomplete information and competing priorities. The aftermath of the war sees extensive testing of captured German bunkers using both Allied and German weapons. The Watten bunker, abandoned by German forces in September 1944, becomes a testing ground for bomb evaluation. Its massive concrete structure, originally intended to launch V-2 rockets against England, now serves Allied weapons developers seeking to understand exactly what their bombs can accomplish. The transformation is ironic, a monument to German engineering excellence becoming a proving ground for the weapons that defeated it. One Disney bomb test dropped at Watten embeds itself in the concrete roof without exploding. It remains there for more than 60 years until extraction in January 2009. The 500-pound explosive charge requires careful handling by demolition experts. This single bomb, lodged in its target for 6 decades, serves as a physical reminder of the conflict that produced it and the engineering that made it possible. The Tallboy also leaves unexpected legacies. In December 1958, renovation work on the Sorpe Dam in Germany reveals an unexploded Tallboy from the 1944 attack. British and German demolition officers worked together to defuse a weapon their predecessors tried to use against each other. In September 2019, another Tallboy is discovered in Poland's Piast Canal, dropped during the 1945 attack on the cruiser Lutzow. This bomb detonates during remote defusing operations in October 2020, fortunately without causing injuries. 75 years after the war ends, its weapons remain capable of destruction. The strategic impact of bunker-busting weapons on the Second World War is difficult to quantify precisely, but clearly significant. The destruction of the Somme railway tunnel prevents German armor from reinforcing Normandy at a critical moment. The neutralization of V-weapon facilities reduces the scale of attacks on England. The sinking of the Tirpitz eliminates a major threat to Arctic convoys. Each individual mission contributes to the cumulative erosion of German military capability. Perhaps more importantly, these weapons demonstrate that technological innovation can overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. The fortifications of the Atlantic Wall represent the best protective engineering available in the 1940s. They are designed by experts specifically to resist aerial attack. Yet within months of the Tallboy's introduction, these defenses are proven vulnerable. The message resonates beyond military circles. No advantage is permanent. No defense is absolute. Innovation can always find a way through. The organizational challenges of developing and deploying these weapons offer lessons relevant to any complex technical project. Wallace faces skepticism from the very institutions that should support him. Tyrrell must navigate bureaucratic obstacles involving multiple government departments. Both succeed through persistence, demonstration of technical feasibility, and ultimately political intervention at the highest levels. The path from concept to operational weapon is never straightforward. The manufacturing requirements for tallboys and Grand Slams stretch British industrial capabilities to their limits. Each bomb requires skilled craftsmen working with precision tools and expensive materials. Production cannot simply be scaled up by building more factories. The knowledge and expertise needed exist in limited quantities. This constrains how many weapons are available for operations and how they can be used. Strategic choices must account for industrial realities as well as military objectives. The crews who deliver these weapons develop specialized skills unavailable elsewhere. Number 6. 17 Squadron, originally formed for the famous Dam Boasters raid, becomes the primary tallboy and Grand Slam delivery unit. Their pilots and bombardiers train extensively on the stabilizing automatic bomb sight, which requires precise corrections for temperature, wind speed, and other factors. The concentration of expertise in a single squadron creates both capability and vulnerability. Losses cannot easily be replaced. American experience with the Disney bomb follows a different pattern. Multiple bomb groups receive the weapon, spreading expertise more broadly but potentially diluting specialization. The bomb's external mounting on B-17s requires adaptation, but not fundamental aircraft modification. Production in American factories benefits from industrial capacity unavailable in war-weary Britain. Yet the shorter development time means less refinement, contributing to the reliability problems that plague operational use. The contrast between British and American approaches reflects broader national differences in military culture and industrial organization. Britain, with limited resources, tends toward specialized solutions requiring high individual skill. America, with vast production capacity, favors standardized weapons that can be manufactured and deployed in quantity. Both approaches have merits. Both have limitations. The bunker-busting campaigns of 1944 and 1945 demonstrate elements of each. The German response to these weapons reveals the defensive dilemma facing engineers throughout history, adding more concrete delays penetration, but cannot prevent it indefinitely. Creating air gaps between roof layers helps against certain attack modes, but introduces structural vulnerabilities. Dispersing facilities reduces the impact of successful attacks, but increases logistical complexity. There is no perfect defense, only trade-offs between different types of vulnerability. The final months of the European War see German defensive works abandoned almost as fast as they can be constructed. Resources devoted to fortification could have gone to aircraft, tanks, or ammunition. The decision to build impregnable bunkers reflects a strategic assumption that such structures are worth their cost. The Tallboy and Grand Slam invalidate that assumption. The concrete poured at Watten, Wizernes, Mimoyex, and dozens of other sites becomes simply expensive rubble. This realization has profound implications for post-war military planning. Nuclear weapons make conventional bunkers even more vulnerable, but the principles established by Wallace remain relevant for non-nuclear conflicts. The ability to penetrate hardened targets without resorting to nuclear options becomes a significant military capability. Nations invest heavily in both offensive penetration and defensive hardening, the technological race continuing with ever more sophisticated weapons and countermeasures. The personal stories of those involved in developing and using these weapons add human dimension to technical achievements. Barnes Wallis lives until 1979, continuing to innovate in aerospace engineering. His later work includes variable geometry wing designs that influence modern fighter aircraft. He receives numerous honors, but remains characteristically modest about accomplishments that changed the course of the war. Edward Terrell returns to legal practice after the war, his contribution to weapons development largely forgotten. The Disney bomb that bears Walt Disney's name, however inadvertently, remains a footnote in most histories of the air war. Yet Terrell's unconventional background, his willingness to think beyond established military doctrine, exemplifies the innovative spirit that repeatedly proves decisive in modern warfare. The German engineers who built the bunkers deserve recognition as well. Their work represents genuine engineering achievement, even in service of an evil cause. The submarine pens, V-weapon facilities, and coastal fortifications they designed remain standing in many locations now, serving as museums, historical monuments, or simply mysterious ruins in the landscape. These structures testify to human capability for both creation and destruction. The concentration camp prisoners who provided forced labor for projects like the Valentine pens cannot speak for themselves. Their suffering forms the darkest chapter of this story. Engineering achievements built on slave labor carry an indelible moral stain. The bombs that penetrated those concrete roofs also, in a sense, liberated those who survived to build them. This complex moral dimension cannot be separated from the technical narrative. Modern visitors to the Blockhaus Depperleck near Watten can see Disney bomb damage firsthand. The massive structure, originally intended to rain destruction on England, now stands as a monument to the conflict that shaped the 20th century. Tourists walk through galleries that never launched a single V-2 rocket, examining craters and penetrations that ended German hopes of wonder weapons changing the war's outcome. History's judgment is written in concrete and steel. The technological legacy continues into the present day. Every precision-guided munition, every bunker-buster bomb, every penetrating weapon in modern arsenals owes something to the pioneers of 1943 and 44. The fundamental physics remain unchanged. Impact velocity, structural density, explosive timing, all must be carefully calculated and precisely controlled. What Barnes-Wallis worked out with slide rules and intuition, modern engineers refine with computers and high-speed cameras, but the principles are the same. The story of the secret shells that blew open Germany's strongest bunkers is ultimately a story about human ingenuity confronting seemingly impossible problems. When conventional approaches fail, unconventional thinking finds new paths. When institutional resistance blocks progress, persistence and demonstration overcome doubt. When the physics of one approach prove inadequate, entirely different physics offer alternatives. These lessons apply far beyond military engineering to any field where innovation confronts established barriers. The earthquake bombs and rocket-assisted penetrators of World War II changed how nations think about fortification, defense, and the relationship between offensive and defensive capability. No structure, however massive, provides absolute protection. No defense, however sophisticated, remains impervious forever. The race between penetration and protection continues, but the fundamental advantage lies with those willing to think differently about problems others consider solved. As the last tallboy fell on the Berghof in April 1945, it marked not an ending, but a beginning. The weapons developed in the desperate years of global conflict laid foundations for military technology that continues evolving today. The engineers who conceived them, the workers who built them, the crews who delivered them, and yes, even those who sheltered beneath the concrete they penetrated, all contributed to a technological revolution whose consequences extend far beyond any single war. The secret shell that blew open 5 bunkers with one hit was never just one weapon. It was a concept, a principle, a way of thinking about problems that seemed unsolvable. Barnes-Wallis understood that the Earth itself could become a weapon. Edward Terrell recognized that rocket propulsion could achieve what gravity alone could not. Together, working independently on different approaches to the same fundamental challenge, they created weapons that changed history. Their legacy continues wherever engineers confront hardened targets, wherever military planners calculate penetration against protection, wherever innovation challenges the assumption that any defense can be truly impregnable. Thank you for watching this deep dive into one of the most fascinating engineering stories of the Second World War. If you enjoyed this documentary, please subscribe, like, and share with others who appreciate military history. Leave a comment telling us what topics you would like to see covered in future videos. Until next time, remember that the greatest weapons are not always the largest, but those that find new ways to accomplish what others consider impossible.